The Path of Discrimination. 1.10 Treatise on a Schedule. 1. Unparched. It is liberated, thus it is liberation. Recognition is deliverance. The higher virtue, the higher cognizance, the higher understanding. Tranquility, knowledge, seeing, purification, renunciation, escape, seclusion, relinquishment, behavior, jhana liberation, development, steadiness, life. 2. Unparched. Unparched by zeal for sensual desires owing to renunciation. Unparched by ill will owing to non-ill will. And so on with the rest of the 7 hindrances, the 4 jhanas, the 4 immaterial attainments, the 18 principal insights, and the 4 paths, as in Tr. I sections 36 through 40, but excluding the 4 fruitions up to unparched by any defilements owing to the arahant path. 3. It is liberated, thus it is liberation. It is liberated from zeal for sensual desires by renunciation, thus it is liberation. It is liberated from ill will by non-ill will, thus it is liberation. It is liberated from all defilements by the arahant path, thus it is liberation. 4. Recognition is deliverance. Renunciation is recognized, vijati, thus it is recognition. He is delivered from zeal for sensual desires, thus it is deliverance. It being recognized, he is delivered. Being delivered, it is recognized, thus recognition is deliverance. Non-ill will, the arahant path is recognized, thus it is recognition. He is delivered from all defilements, thus it is deliverance. Being recognized, he is delivered. Being delivered, it is recognized, thus recognition is deliverance. 5. The higher virtue, the higher cognizance, the higher understanding. Owing to renunciation, there is purification of virtue in the sense of restraint of zeal for sensual desires. There is purification of cognizance in the sense of non-distraction. There is purification of view in the sense of seeing. The meaning of restraint therein is training in the higher virtue. The meaning of non-distraction therein is training in the higher cognizance. The meaning of seeing therein is training in the higher understanding. Owing to non-ill will. Owing to the arahant path, there is purification of virtue in the sense of restraint of all defilements. There is purification of cognizance in the sense of non-distraction. There is purification of view in the sense of seeing. The meaning of restraint therein is training in the higher virtue. The meaning of non-distraction therein is training in the higher cognizance. The meaning of seeing therein is training in the higher understanding. 6. Tranquility. By renunciation, he tranquilizes zeal for sensual desires. By non-ill will. By the arahant path, he tranquilizes all defilements. 7. Knowledge. Renunciation due to the abandoning of zeal for sensual desires is knowledge in the sense of being known. Non-ill will. The arahant path due to the abandoning of all defilements is knowledge in the sense of being known. 8. Seeing. Renunciation due to the abandoning of zeal for sensual desires is seeing due to being seen. Non-ill will. The arahant path due to the abandoning of all defilements is seeing due to being seen. 9. Purification. One who abandons zeal for sensual desires is purified by renunciation. One who abandons ill will. One who abandons all defilements is purified by the arahant path. 10. Renunciation. This is the escape in the case of sensual desires, that is to say, renunciation. This is the escape in the case of the kinds of materiality, that is to say, immateriality. But in the case of whatever is formed, and is dependently arisen, cessation is renunciation. Non-ill will is the renunciation of ill will. Perception of light. The arahant path is the renunciation of all defilements. 11. Escape. This is the escape in the case of sensual desires, that is to say, renunciation. This is the escape in the case of the kinds of materiality, that is to say, immateriality. But in the case of whatever is formed and is dependently arisen, cessation is the escape. Renunciation is the escape in the case of zeal for sensual desires. Non-ill will is the escape in the case of ill will. Perception of light. The arahant path is the escape in the case of all defilements. 12. Seclusion. Renunciation is seclusion in the case of zeal for sensual desires. Non-ill will. The arahant path is seclusion in the case of all defilements. 13. Relinquishment. He relinquishes zeal for sensual desires by means of renunciation. He relinquishes ill will by means of non-ill will. He relinquishes all defilements by means of the arahant path. 14. Behavior. One abandoning zeal for sensual desires behaves according to renunciation. One abandoning ill will. One abandoning all defilements behaves according to the arahant path. 15. Jhana liberation. Renunciation is ignited, jayati, thus it is jhana. It consumes, japiti, zeal for sensual desires, thus it is jhana. Being ignited, jayanto, it is liberated, thus it is jhana liberation. Consuming japinto, it is liberated, thus it is jhana liberation. They are ignited, jayanti, namely, good ideas, dhamma. They are consumed, japini, namely, defilements. He knows the ignited, jata, and the consumed, japa, thus there is jhana liberation. Non-ill will is ignited. The arahant path is ignited, thus it is jhana. He knows the ignited and the consumed, thus it is jhana liberation. 16. Development, steadiness, and life. One who abandons zeal for sensual desires develops renunciation, thus he is possessed of development. By means of renunciation, he steadies cognizance, thus he is possessed of steadiness. Being thus possessed of development and possessed of steadiness, he lives what is the same as renunciation, not what is not the same, unsame. He lives rightly, not wrongly. He lives what is purified, not what is defiled. Being thus possessed of development, possessed of steadiness, and possessed of right living, whatever company he approaches, whether Katiya company or Brahmin company or householder company or ascetic company, he approaches it with assurance and unhesitantly. Why is that? Because he is thus possessed of development, possessed of steadiness, and possessed of right living. One who abandons ill will. One who abandons all defilements. Possessed of right living. End of treatise on a schedule. Here is the list of contents. Knowledge, views, breaths, faculties, and liberations for the fifth. Destination, action, and perversions. Path and fine extract make up 10. Coupling, actualities, enlightenment factors. Loving kindness, and fading as fifth. Discriminations, the wheel of the true idea. The supramundane, the powers and voidness. Understanding, success, convergence. Seclusion, behavior as fifth. Marvels and same-headedness. Mindfulness, insight, and a schedule. The book on discrimination is completed.